Welcome to Make and Decorate, a podcast for makers who love to sew, quilt, and decorate. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Make and Decorate podcast. This is episode 47, originally published on April 2nd, 2020. So this episode is with your host, me, Stephanie, and we're going to talk about a myriad of topics: sewing, quilting, a little bit of home decor, and of course, food. So before I get started, I just want to thank everyone for the birthday wishes last week and also for the get well wishes. Some of you on Instagram sent me messages, and that really brightened my day. I was really ill since the 20th. Starting this week, I started to feel much better. I had a virus, and I'm pretty sure it was the virus, but fortunately it was not severe. So I'm just really glad to be here. So I just, if anyone else is out there and you're listening and you are at home sick, I just want you to know, I'll give you a couple of tips because you think you feel better than you are when you're laying in bed. But the second that you move your body around and do any little tiny bit of cardio movement, you're going to go right back to bed, or you have to, because this respiratory virus really makes you weak. So make sure you stay in bed. You've really got to stay in bed for pretty much a week, if not a little bit more, but definitely for the first week, and lots of fluids and a lot of sleep. So I did not listen to my body or the advice, and I kept trying to get up and sew. But then when I started to feel really bad, I knew I had to go back to bed. And finally, midweek, I succumbed, and I just stayed in bed for the next, 3, 4, 5 days. All right. So moving on, I did, though, when I did take some time to sew, I was making masks, and you probably, a lot of you have also made masks and are still making masks. And there are so many different patterns and tutorials out there on YouTube. And I used the first tutorial from Red Poppy. I think she's called Red Poppy Quilts. But since the first episode, her first tutorial, then she uploaded 2 more. So there's a couple of other different styles of masks that she put out there. And the last one that she put up was like one of the better, I think, filtering, more protective kind of mask. But anyway, there was also, I saw some controversy on sewing the masks, and if that was, the right thing to do. And I'll weigh in on that, just on my own opinion. I think it is the right thing to do. I don't think that you should just make a bunch and send them out willy-nilly, especially these masks that we're making that are not N95 grade quality really should go to non-hospitals first, so that, for instance, veterinarian offices are giving their N95 masks to the hospitals and the personnel who need it the most. And then a lot of other people are making masks to give to these places like veterinarian offices and other places. I made masks for my husband's company. He's in the food business, and he's got truck drivers that are delivering to local grocery stores all over the place, and they were unprotected. Of course, this is not 100% protection, but I believe it's better than no protection at all. So anyway, so yeah, that's my opinion. So don't think that it's a waste of time. Oh, and in fact, the governor of my state recognized there was a few people in southern Illinois, and they were making masks. This one woman had a business, and she made other types of products. And since this quarantine happened, our state of Illinois quarantined us pretty early. I think it was started on like the 20th was the mandate. And so she dropped everything and stopped making her main product and started making masks, and a lot of masks, and for free. And I think all of us are making masks for free and donating them. So I was really happy to read that article. And she wasn't the only one. There were a few other people that were recognized, but it was really nice to see that the governor publicly recognized people in our sewing industry doing good, putting our talents to good use. So just before I get off this mask topic, there's a few things that I think are best practices. And the first thing is just to make sure you communicate with whoever you're making these for and find out their required specifications. There's many different kinds of masks, and they're made with different types of fabrics and materials. Some of them have the pouch to add the filter fabric. Some of them don't. Some of them are 2-ply. Some of them are 4-ply cotton. There's elastic and there's ties. There is a shortage of elastic now, so people are starting to make the masks with the ties. But there's a YouTube video. I will put a link to this on my podcast page. And the YouTube channel is called Bernadette Banner. I have been a subscriber of her channel for, maybe almost a year now. She lives in New York, and she has a very interesting channel. She's more of like a seamstress sewist, and she's very into vintage styles and just that kind of old-fashioned way of life. So she has this beautiful sewing machine. It's a Singer, but it's the hand crank one where you like turn the big wheel on the right side of the machine to make it stitch. And she did a video of her making masks for her veterinarian office. And she made it on that machine. She cut all the pieces out with scissors. But it's just really, she does beautiful filmmaking, and I enjoyed watching it, and she had some very good tips, and she also recommended that you make sure you communicate with whoever you are making these masks for. And she asked them, do you want more quantity with just 2-ply cotton, or do you want less quantity but 4-ply cotton? And they responded, and they wanted less amount of masks with the 4-ply. So I thought that was great. So you can give that a watch, and there's a bunch more out there. So thanks everyone for making masks. I think that our community is just so giving and generous, and it brings a little bit of sunshine to this really dark time. Okay, so with all of us in quarantine now, there has been a change in just how we are eating and food availability. So that's one of the things that has definitely been an adjustment for me, because I I like to cook. I do. But I don't like to do it every single meal. And now we are relegated pretty much to cook and prepare food at home. So it actually is a ton of work. So if you don't have help, we don't have, the kid helpers that could help us. So it's just me and my husband, and really it's just me making these meals now. Although he did help out when I was down and sick. But yeah, it's definitely challenging to make meals every day, all of the meals. I do try to make some meals that will have leftovers, so it does give me a break from cooking the next day. But I've been trying some different recipes and looking for good, uh, healthy, nutritious meals, but some ones that just don't take forever. I mean, now is not the time to do the Julia Child coq au vin recipe that takes like 4 to 6 hours to make. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that I have been seeing. One of them is to follow Ina Garten on Instagram. Ina Garten has been on the Food Network for many, many years, and she has been a favorite of mine ever since she appeared as a guest on the Martha Stewart show back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I love her style of cooking. It is very gourmet, but with a very simple technique and not overwhelming. I have all of her cookbooks, and I actually met her in person. I can remember this. It's so funny how you can remember some details of certain things that happen in life. And this was in 2006. I was working downtown, just a mere few blocks from this Crate and Barrel, who was having her do a book signing. So thankfully for my husband, otherwise I would not have gotten it signed. He told me, you have got to get there like early, like 2 hours early. And I did. And I was probably like 20 people back in line. And by the time they started the book signing, which is about 2 hours later, that line went all the way through the store, all the way downstairs, tons and tons of people. So I was so thankful that my husband gave me that advice and that I did it. And yes, I did wait a while, but we waited inside. We did not have to wait outside, and got to chit chat with people that like to cook and love Ina Garten as much as I do. And when I got up there and she signed the book, she was so nice, personable, and all the people that you see on her shows were there, her friends. And it's a very memorable book signing because it was one of the most pleasant experiences I have had with getting something signed. Uh, I've had some experiences that were really not very good, and I always just don't feel great about asking people to sign their things, but this was an actual event, and that's what they were there to do. However, I'll tell you one other story. My husband and I used to golf all the time, like 15 years ago. That was our thing. That was before I was really very heavy into sewing and quilting. So if you golf, it takes up a lot of time. Like a round of golf minimum will take 4 hours, but usually, especially on weekends, you're out there for like at least 6 hours. And so we would go to when the golf tournaments would come here locally. There was one called the Western Open, and when we back in the day, that was like Tiger Woods, like heyday. He was young and he was at the top of his game. And my husband's vendor had a very good location. We got tickets. It was so posh. It was so great. It was so lucky. And I got to see Tiger Woods' parents up close. And we couldn't get Tiger's signature, but my husband went up to his father and got his signature on this Cog Hill golf flag. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, no, no, do not bother them. He's like, oh, what they're going to do? They could say no. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting. So anyway, all right, I digressed, but here we go, bringing it back. All right, back to food. Another YouTube channel I discovered and I love and I subscribe to is called Sam the Cooking Guy. And this guy, Sam, he works in restaurants. I don't know if he's an owner. It seems like he is. I'm not quite sure. I've only seen a few episodes, but he is cooking in an empty restaurant. And the restaurant food that he said that they made were like mini tacos or something like that. So anyway, he is doing this series of quarantine munchies, and every episode focuses on a different type of food. So I saw an episode of eggs, and he made all these different things, and I got really good ideas. One of them was, that everybody knows about this, where I think it's called egg in a nest or something like that. But it's where you make cut out a big circle in the slice of bread, and then you crack the egg and fill and drop it into that hole that you just made in the bread, and you fry that up in the frying pan. And then when you then the yolk just drips all over the bread and it's just all this kinds of yumminess. Well, he did it with a waffle. Why didn't I ever think of that before? So the very next day did that because I cheated. We had Eggo waffles on hand. So I took my Eggo waffles out and I did the little holes in them with my biscuit cutter. And it was so delicious. It was really cool. So he had a bunch of other cool recipes. And these are like recipes that everyday people are making in their homes. It's not, the super like hoity-toity with all the herbs and hard to get ingredients. So he was doing recipes. He did this one with Spam. So I don't know. I don't have Spam and I don't think I'm planning to get it, but he did say some alternates that you could use in place of that. Like you could actually use regular ham or hot dogs. He did an episode on pasta. There's an episode with potatoes. So you should check it out. It's really a fun series, and you can really get some fresh ideas of what to make while you're quarantined at home with the ingredients that you probably have sitting around. All right, and then I want to tell you about my local tea shop. It's called the Rare Tea Cellar, Cellar, and they sell online, so you could order from them, and they will ship this tea to you. It is they have like my favorite tea, which is a rose lychee noir. And it's a black tea, and it has like rose petals in it, and it's got this lychee fruit flavor infused in it. But it's a very fine tea shop. It's got like the real high quality loose leaf tea leaves. Some of their teas are uber duper super duper expensive. Of course I can't do those, but they've got also some more affordable ones, and I love the lychee noir one. They have a regular lychee noir and then the rose, and I love them both. But the rose is really good too, and it's not that expensive. And herbal tea. They have this really good it's like a berry meritage, they call it, and it's made with two types of currant berries. There's hibiscus in there and other things, and it is just delicious. So anyway, I'm telling you all of this because, well, I drink a lot of tea, and especially when I was sick last week, that is one of the things that I was drinking the most. Just making hot tea pot after hot tea pot. So I had to replenish my tea supply, but now with this quarantine, they are doing these specials where they're doing 30% off sales on different types of tea every couple days. So they've already done the herbal tea. So I got my berry meritage for 30% off. Now today, well, I'm recording this on Tuesday, so I think the sale is going to be it's only for 2 days long that they do this, but and this podcast is going up on Thursday, but you could still check back because maybe they'll have a sale on green tea next. But yeah, so today and tomorrow is a sale on the black tea. So I'm probably going to get more of that rose lychee noir. I'll put a link to that because you might want to check it out. It's really, really good, delicious tea. It's not something that, I mean, it's definitely a lot more than your regular grocery store brand, and you may not want it for an everyday thing, but it is really, it's really nice if you just, want it for, here and there. But I kind of do use it sort of like every day right now. But you know what? I have a huge selection. I am not a snob of teas, so I also have, I like the black cherry celestial seasonings, herbal tea. I like the Twinings. Is it the Twining? It's one of the, I always get them confused. But the Earl Grey. So I have got a huge variety of teas in my collection. But yeah, this particular lychee and herbal tea from the Rare Tea Seller shop is really very, very good. And the berry meritage tea is highly full of vitamin C and antioxidants, and it helps support your immune system. So there's that extra little benefit there. Okay, oh my gosh. I was afraid I didn't have enough to talk about, but I'm going to have to probably edit this down because I'm just rambling. But you know what? If you guys are sewing and you're doing some quilting and you have me on in the background, then, that's fine. It's going to be a long one, but just listen while you're doing other things. So when I got the email from the Rare Tea Seller today, and they had the 30% off the the black tea varieties, they had a photograph of a tea set next to one of their teas, and it was my tea set. I'm going to put a picture on my podcast page, but I was like, oh, that's my tea set. And this tea set was given to me, and it is my favorite because, of course, blue. I love blue and white, and it's one of my favorite color combinations. Also, this tea set is called Russian Blue Lomonosov. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last word correctly, but it is made in Russia, and the pattern of this tea set is called Cobalt net pattern. It's kind of like this harlequin diamondy pattern that is hand painted with the cobalt, real mineral blue cobalt, and then they accent it on top of that with 22 karat gold. So you can imagine that it is a little bit pricey. So I was very thankful that I was given that as a gift, and I just absolutely love it. And it is porcelain, china, all hand painted and pretty delicate. So I still kind of use it whenever I want to, but it's not an everyday thing because the teacups, they're very thin. But it's just so beautiful, and it's just so much fun to use it. So, but I'm going to do a little reading for you because I think the story of this China is interesting, and I've kind of learned a lot more about different types of china and collectible pottery. So this is one collection that is collectible, and you'll see it sold on Etsy, eBay, and here is the story. The Lomonosov Imperial Porcelain Factory was founded in St. Petersburg in 1744 under the decree of Peter the Great's daughter, Empress Elizabeth. It was the first porcelain company in Russia and the third in all of Europe. With the abolition of the Russian monarchy in 1917, the factory was renamed the State Porcelain Factory. During the early years of the Soviet Union, it made propaganda wares. In 1925, it was named after the founder of the Russian Academy of Science, Mikhail Lomonosov. The factory's best-known pattern, Cobalt net, first appeared in 1949. It is based on a blue net pattern hand-painted and cast into the porcelain dinnerware pieces of Catherine the Great, using actual examples of her collection, which the factory has. The pattern is a combination of intersecting lines of cobalt blue made from mineral cobalt with inverted teardrops and 22-karat gold accents. In 1993, the factory was privatized as the Lomonosov Porcelain Factory and began to export wares to the U.S., among other countries. So that's kind of like a condensed story of this China porcelain company. And there's another thing too, just so you're aware, and in case you start looking for these, there are a lot of counterfeit and fake versions out there. So I have a link to a website that educates all about this, and they have photographs of which is the counterfeit one and which is the real deal, and is it genuine cobalt or not. So take a look at that. I read all of it, and it's good to know about because eBay especially is rampant with all of these fake versions, and you just have to also just be aware of how they word it. So when they say that it's Lomonosov inspired or Lomonosov designs, then that's a red flag that it's not the real thing. Okay, so that is the end of the food topic. I'm going to move on to entertainment. So I definitely did watch a lot of TV. I definitely got TV'd out quickly. So then I started to watch online classes on the TV through my Apple TV. There's a 30-day free trial on the, it's called Great Courses Plus, and it is available on the Apple TV and Roku. So you don't have to AirPlay it to your TVs. You can actually go to their app store on either device if you have a Roku or if you have an Apple TV, Great Courses Plus, and you will sign up for the free 30 days. I think you do have to give a credit card, but whenever I do stuff like that, I always put a reminder in my phone to remind me a couple of days before they will renew and charge the credit card that I will have to cancel. So, and this one I'm definitely going to cancel. Sometimes I end up going with it, but this one I'm not. But I am having a great time, and I think 30 days worth of this is a great way to get to know this platform, and has different type of classes. So it's a different platform than, let's say, like a Skillshare or Blueprint or lynda.com. This Great Courses Plus has a lot of educational courses taught by professors of universities and also instructors, professors at the Culinary Institute of America. There are the food classes, and I watched some of those. In fact, there is one, and that is where I got a new recipe that I absolutely love. And it is so fast to make, and it is so healthy and delicious and comfort food like. It is called avgolemino soup, and it's what is known as Greek lemon soup, Greek lemon chicken soup. It is so quick to make, though. If you don't make your own, or if you have your own chicken stock, let's say on hand, you make a big batch and you freeze it and you have them on hand, this is a good use of that. Or you could do what I just did, and I used a couple of boxes of chicken stock, and I just roasted some chicken breast in the oven, and made rice in the Instant Pot or a rice cooker. Once you have those components made, the chicken and the rice, this soup takes 10 minutes to make. It is amazing. And there's only 5 ingredients. It's chicken, rice, chicken stock, eggs, and lemon juice. That's it. And it is it was like the most delicious soup you will have had in a while. So yeah, I'm really excited about that soup. I really, really love it. Okay. Other classes on Great Courses Plus. As I was doing other things, I was up in my sewing room. They have these tours of countries. So I was watching the tour of the UK. I found that really interesting. I just love learning about, geography was one of my favorite subjects in school, and history was as well. And I love learning about other places in the world. So this one really gave me a deeper look into the different regions of the UK and what they're known for. And they would highlight places for you to visit that are not like this regular touristy places. Like when people go to the UK, they want to go see the changing of the guard, the tower, the this or that. Well, if you travel up, either by train or whatever, more into the mid or the north of the UK, there are some really nice places to visit. And I just think it's beautiful. The UK, when you get further up north, has just those rolling hills, and immediately reminds me of all of those masterpiece classics, TV series and British movies, and it's so romantic. So yeah, I liked that one, and I just started watching the tour of France. Oh my gosh, can you tell I watched a lot of that one? I'm getting my 30 days worth of this free trial, definitely. Then I started watching container gardening, because I do container gardening. We have a pretty large deck, and every year I do container gardening. So I'm just going to tell you one thing about this. It's a really good course. I haven't even finished it all. But she said that you should not put rocks at the bottom of the pot. A lot of people will put a bunch of rocks at the bottom and think that that's going to help the drainage of the soil. And she says it doesn't. It makes it worse, and holds the moisture in and can mildew the plant and so forth. And I've had experience with that happening. And guess who I learned that you should put rocks on the bottom of the pots from? Martha Stewart. Hello, bad Martha Stewart. That was terrible information. You're not supposed to do that. So I'm passing that tip on to you guys. Okay. One other thing I found on Great Courses Plus, they had a few blueprint classes on there, which I thought was weird. I don't know what relationship Great Courses Plus has with Blueprint, but there are some Blueprint courses on there. And there's only about 5 quilting classes on Great Courses Plus, and they're blueprint classes. But I watched a couple of them, and I learned a lot. So the instructor is Debbie Caffrey, and you can watch these on Blueprint. So if you're in the middle of a Blueprint free trial, take a look at those. But there's a class where she talks about all things quilters should know and strip piecing ideas, smart, no waste cutting. So I found this very interesting, and she's definitely from the school of traditional quilting. But there is such great technique and stuff that I didn't really know, because although I started off quilting, taking like a traditional Quilting 101 class, we just did like a 9-patch, and then we did a star design, quilt tops. And then I sort of kind of hopped on over to modern quilting, and I never really knew what to do with, those strips, those 2.5-inch strips. Moda calls them jelly rolls, and, other companies, I don't know what they call them, but those 2.5-inch strips. Well, I got a ton of ideas on what to do with those from this class. And I learned about the rulers, the triangle rulers. I don't know about you guys, but those rulers can be so confusing, because there are equilateral triangles, there are flying geese triangles. Flying geese is probably one of the more popular ones that a lot of people do. And there are the right angle triangles, which are quarter square triangles. That's what I was trying to think of. So, and there's like a million different rulers for those, and they're hard to like distinguish and so forth. So what I learned is, if you see a triangle ruler and it only has the horizontal lines across the triangle, that is for quarter square triangles. And you use those measuring lines to make those types of triangles. If you see a triangle ruler and it's got more of a grid, measurements and guides on there, then those are for the like the flying geese type of triangles, or half square. Flying geese are half square triangles. So that was an eye opener for me. And then the way that you measure with these rulers. So I never knew this, but OmniGrid, they're right angle ruler, half square triangle rulers, and they're quarter square ruler triangles. Triangle rulers, they are marked with finished sizes. Most of all of the other brands of rulers out there are marked with the cut size on them. So on an OmniGrid, if you cut on the 2-inch line mark, then that cut is not going to be a 2-inch triangle. It's going to include the 1/4-inch seam allowance. So it's really going to be more like a, 2.5-inch triangle. So on another ruler, you would line that up at the 2.5-inch mark, not the 2-inch mark. It's confusing. See how confusing that is? But now I know. OmniGrid does it this way, where they mark the rulers with the finished size, and the rest of the rulers mark it with the cut size. So I don't know if you guys already knew that. Probably you did, but I did not. So I was so excited to learn this stuff. I mean, this instructor, Debbie Caffrey, she's a quilt designer. She's been doing this for so many years, and she has a lot of classes on Blueprint. She has put together all of these charts of, if you're cutting this size and this is the size of fabric strip you need. It's just really cool. It's amazing. And I was just blown away. Blown away. I learned so much. Okay, more entertainment. Uh, I just got an audiobook from Chirp, CHIRP. Don't know if you're familiar with Chirp books, but it's like similar to, um, oh, what's that real popular one? It's similar to Audible, but different. And I like it. You purchase audiobooks from them like Audible, but it's not a subscription base. You just go there, you look for what you want. They rotate sales that are up to 95% off. And I got the Quilter's Apprentice book by Jennifer Chiaverini, and right now it's on sale for $3.99. Normally about $17 for the audiobook. And this book is currently the book that Sarah Lawson's book club is reading. And I think she said on April 12th or 16th, I can't remember. Sometime in mid April, her Sunday Social YouTube show is going to do the book club review of that book. So I was really excited that I found that book for a really low price, because sometimes like the library lending digital books, you have to go on these waiting lists, and you only have a limited amount of time to have them checked out. And it's just, I like it, I use it, but I also, if I find something that's a little bit more reasonable that I can just have forever, I like that too. So that's from Chirp Books. So last week on my podcast page, I put a list of new things that I've been watching on either Netflix or Hulu, YouTube, and there is one I did not put on there. And now that it has become like everywhere, I hear about this everywhere, and I can't believe it, because I would not have watched the show. It's on Netflix, and my husband was like, "You have got to watch this series. It is crazy." And so it's called The Tiger King. Warning. All right, it is not for kids at all, and it literally isn't for adults either. I mean, I'm literally shocked that I watched the series, but it's one of those train wreck type of things. And I kept saying, like, after like the second episode, I was like, this is such trash. I cannot watch any more of this. But then I went back to it, first of all, because I was, in bed with nothing else lot to do. And I looked at the titles and descriptions of the other episodes. So it had a progression to where, like people were going to be convicted and go to jail. So I wanted to see that. I wanted to, see this justice for, there is a whole group of people in the United States that own these exotic animals, and especially in this show, it was tigers and cats, exotic cats, tigers, lions, bobcats, mountain lion cats. I mean, it's just like appalling. It is appalling. It's sad. And so I was really shocked when I actually heard that it was like a main news story on Good Morning America, and it's so popular. But yeah, so the only thing I could say positive that could come from this is that, first of all, they reopened up this, cold case murder case in Florida. And secondly, like groups like the Humane Society and PETA are all over this. And I think it's bringing some some recognition to what's going on, and hopefully we can completely stop the ownership of these exotic animals that no one should own and no one should have in a cage. That's my opinion. All right. So end of that topic. Let's talk about sewing and quilting. And you were probably wondering, like, when is she ever going to talk about quilting and sewing? Well, here we go. All right. I finished the Sewing in the Rain foundation paper piece pattern. Turned out really well. It's so cute. I learned a couple of things about it that I'm going to pass on to you, because I talk about doing foundation paper piecing with the freezer paper method. I love to do that so much because you don't have to stitch through the paper. However, the Singing in the Rain pattern has a lot of tiny, tiny pieces. And I found that it was just near impossible to do the freezer paper method with that. So I had to switch to just the normal stitching onto the paper. It's not that huge of a finished piece anyway, so the tearing of the papers out at the end is not that big of a deal. So, but definitely stitching through the paper on patterns that have tiny pieces is the way to go. And I'm still making masks. I have my cousin, my aunt. Her mother is my aunt, and she asked me if I could make masks. My cousin is disabled, and she lives in a group home. It's where like they can live sort of independently, but they still have some, assisted, I guess, living sort of there, which is really nice. So they are in need. This group home is in need of masks. So I'm going to start sewing some of those for them. And other projects that I have on deck, I've got some commission jobs that I have to work on. And I still need to make that second pair of the baby knit pants, the one where I told you guys I got the fabric for that I originally had messed up on. So I've got to make that, and I still have to make the baby bonnets for my baby niece. And oh my gosh, so she was born a little premature and was only about 5.5 pounds when she came home from the hospital. And now I think she's like 8 pounds or more, but she's growing really nicely. She's a beautiful baby. I have not seen her in person yet, but thank goodness for like technology to where you can, my sister takes a lot of pictures of her, and my other sister, I can FaceTime with her and her kids. So, but man, this baby is growing. So I'm not even going to make the newborn one anymore. I'm going to make the 3-month size and probably a 12-month size that she can grow into. Wedding quilt I have to make. And I started to redo a list for me that I really want to kind of have, continue to make. I started a king quilt for me, and that was also a foundation paper piece pattern, and it just got kind of chucked into the back of the project line. So I'm going to pull that back out and see how I can work that in, because if I don't work things in to I don't know, it's not a schedule, but work them into my, what's on deck projects, to work on, then it's never going to get done. It's just going to sit, and I had it in the back of a closet, on a closet shelf. So I'm going to pull that out and work on it whenever I can. And then a second pair of pajamas. In December, I made a pair of the Molly pajamas by 5 out of 4 patterns. It's a great pattern, and I've got the fabric to make a second pair, so I need to make those sometime soon. Okay, and then I want to talk about another hobby that I picked up while I was sick. Yes, I know. I started something else, and it is knitting. But I'm not going to get like super heavy into knitting, I don't think. It's just that I keep seeing everybody making these knit dishcloths everywhere. And I saw a video pop up in YouTube, and I really liked it. And I decided that that was something that I could work on while I was in bed. And so I'm going to put a link to this YouTube channel in on the podcast page. It is called Bonnie Bay Crochet. So this person's channel is really more it's focuses on crochet, but she did do a knitting video on knitting dishcloths. And what is unique about it is that she uses circular knitting needles to make a dishcloth, and she explained why. And so I ordered the circular knitting needles, and completely understand like what she was saying, because the larger knitting needles, if you are more used to crochet, which I am, the larger knitting needles are a little bit harder to get used to, whereas these circular knitting needles are shorter. They're almost the size of a crochet hook, and they fit in your hands more comfortably. So that's what I got. And I'm about halfway, maybe 2/3 done with one. Now, remember, I don't knit, so I have no idea what I'm doing. And I just learned this off of her tutorial. I watched a couple of other people's tutorials as well, but I kept going back to hers, and until I got the stitches down. The first half of the dishcloth is where you increase your stitches or loops. And I finally got that. You know, I must have restarted that 20 times, literally, where I could not get past the first 2 to 3 rows. So finally, when I got that stitch down, I was able to progress. And then when it was time to do the decrease stitches, then that was a whole nother story. So I am currently working on that part of it, but that's when the dishcloth started to go wonky because I would forget to do the decrease on some rows, and I would not get both of the loops completely done. I mean, it's definitely like a funny looking dishcloth, but hey, it will still be usable. And I thought about ripping it out and starting over, but I just didn't. I couldn't. The place where I'm at now is like many hours of work. And I know it's a learning piece for me, practice piece, and I'm okay with it. You know, it's way, way, way far from perfect, but I'm learning. So it's interesting. I like it. Oh, and if any of you knitters out there have tips for the decrease stitches, let me know, because what I'm having a problem with is this particular pattern is the one where it's got the little border around the whole edge of the dishcloth. And then there's like that little hole that makes the border. That's done by decreasing 2 loops. Well, all right, here's the thing. I don't know. I'm going into too much detail, I know, but you know what? Fast forward me if you have to. Okay, so the decrease goes, you stitch one stitch, then you put your needle through 2 stitches, 2 loops, and make a stitch off of that. Then you do an increase wrap, and then put your needle through another 2 loops. That's the part. The first one's hard, but I can usually get it. The second one, with that increase and the 2 loops, is so hard. I have to try several times before I can get that stitch completed. I think the tension is probably too tight, but anyway, any tips, I'm open. Let me know. Okay, so I've got a couple of products to tell you about. So one of these is a birthday gift that I got from my parents. It was on my Amazon wish list. But so as I have been getting into watercolor painting and card making, I saw this Tim Holtz glass media mat. Um, and it is made, so it's black. It sort of looks like the Tula Pink cutting mat, but this is made out of glass. It's tempered glass. And it's got the grid on there just like you would see on a quilting rotary mat. And you can cut on it with rotary cutters. So I just found that pretty fascinating, and it's mainly used for mixed media projects. And the glass allows you to put any type of wet media on there that you need, and it's right next to what you're working on. It makes it so convenient. I haven't used it yet, just because I've been sick, but I can't wait to use it. Here's the thing, though. I didn't realize this, but it's heavy. It's like 6 pounds, but I mean, that's heavy. It's not, I didn't really think about like where I was going to put this, and it sort of needs to be put in a place that it stays. Like, it's not meant to be moved every time you want to use it. So I have to figure that out. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, but I do want to use it. And since you can rotary cut on there, I could cut like, quilt pieces on there if I wanted to. But there's another part of this media cutting mat. So the first part of it is all like the cutting part, the cutting mat. Then there's like the second part, and they have a right-handed version and a left-handed version. And on the right side of it, there is this like a pad, and there's like a removable sort of like a silicone sheet, and there's another large grid on there, the glass part, where you can put like your stamp dyes and inks onto, and put like a whole palette of colors. It's just, there's a lot of options that you could do. I mean, people will do like this, what is it called? It's like they scrape off like this putty knife stuff. It's like a plaster that they'll scrape onto stencils, and it'll make this raised design on the paper. But I even thought that you could put some paint on those palettes, and even paint onto fabric pieces if you wanted to make like custom pieces of fabric. So that's just kind of like a new toy that I got as a gift. And another thing that I got, which I found to be very useful, and I am glad that I got it, is I've been wanting to get a round one for a while. I have the small 12-inch size, and then a bigger, I think it's a 14-inch square, the OmniGrid rotating square mats. And I use those a lot too. But I have been wanting the round one. And the Martelli one, of course, is like, probably the best. But it's got a really heavy base, and it's expensive. So I am on the Missouri Star email list, and they just had this last week on one of their daily deals, and it was like 40% off, and I got it, and I love it. It reminds me of those cake decorating turntable-y things, because it's kind of on those little ball bearing rollers, and it turns so easily, and it's pink. It's pretty. I like pink. So if you don't like pink, you won't like this, but I like pink. And I used it for finishing the Singing in the Rain foundation paper piece pattern, and I am going to use it for all of the blocks of the Allison Glass Juicy Juice. So sew along, which I have to catch up on. But I really recommend this mat, and it's it's not as expensive as the Omnigrids, and it's way less expensive than the Martelli one. And I find it really useful if you do that kind of quilting and sewing. You can also square up blocks on there too, up to a certain size. But you can find it at Missouri Star, and I also saw it on Amazon. And I'll put the link on the podcast page of the Sue Daily rotating mat. One other thing I got that was new, also a birthday gift, and it's not like sewing or decorating related, but you might be interested. I don't know. But I got a new flat iron, and it is so amazing. And if you have naturally curly hair like I do, and it's long right now, this is the flat iron for you. And I'm not even sponsored by this at all. It's something that my hairstylist told me about a month ago, and she used it on me, and it was so good. And my current flat iron is at least 10 years old, so it was time for a new one. And I put on my birthday list and got it. It is expensive. Warning, it is very expensive, but if it's something that you will use on a daily basis and you'll use these things, like I use blow dryers and flat irons pretty much until they die or get too old. And so that means at least 10 years or more. So invest in a quality appliance, and you will not regret it. So this one is an inch and a half. It's called the Paul Mitchell Neuro Neuro Smooth Plus. The plus means that it's wider. It's an inch and a half, so it's good for people that have coarse, thick, or long hair, which is all me. And the special thing about this flat iron that makes it outstanding are the titanium plates are built into it. They don't sit very much above the surface, just a little bit. And they are titanium plates with this ion technology. The other thing that I really, really love about it is the beveled edge, so that I can get really close to the root line, because my hair starts to have these weird like kinks and wrinkles or in it, close to my head, and my other flat iron could never reach it because it just wouldn't go that close to the scalp. This one gets right on in there. I mean, and also the hairs like on your face line by your ears, you can really get those little baby hairs too without killing yourself, without burning yourself. You still have to be careful, but that's the main thing that I really, really love about this flat iron. And of course, it has all the auto shut off, temperature controls, all of that. So anyway, that's all of that new stuff that I got. Okay, just a few more things. Decorating, and actually that's it. So let's finish this off with a little bit of decorating talk. So, Costco has had these drapery panels. They just brought them out like maybe beginning February, and I saw them, and they had them hanging up from the ceiling and on a big display. And then I was like, oh no. I'm not a huge fan of grommet drapery panels, but I do see how they can be useful in certain applications. And if you have modern style, they're very modern. They don't have a lot of fullness to them. And here's the other thing. Most of the times when you see grommet panels, they're always not installed correctly. And it just kind of like is a pet peeve, I guess you could say, of mine. So, and that's to no fault of the purchaser. I think they really should like explain this on the packages of the drapery panels, because they just assume that people know how to install these things, and we don't. So the grommet panels, let's say that I saw at Costco, have big, like 2 inch, 2.25 inch round grommets in them. And so they're big. And you can see through them. And when most people will just install them right in front of the window casing, and then you can see, the top of the wood peeking out above the rod. You can see through the grommets to the window casing, and it just looks really awkward. So if you like grommet panels, and really these are actually a good drapery product to put up, let's say, like in kids' rooms or casual rooms, because they are more casual, and they're easy, and you don't have to fuss with rings and clips. So I think that's why it's kind of popular, because it's very simple. So if you do these couple things, then you will have great looking drapery panels. So you want to install them. First of all, install them on a smooth rod. It could be a metal rod or a wood rod, but it's got to be smooth. No like fluted rods or twisted rods, just a straight smooth rod. And if they are not going to be just stationary, which means they're not going to be moved open and closed all the time, then you don't have to do anything else. But if you are planning to like open and close every day, you might want to get a silicone spray. And I think you can get that at any hardware store, but it's a silicone spray. You spray the top of the rod with it, and those grommets will glide so easily, and then you will have a less chance of them scraping off the finish of the rods. Any drapery that you install on rods, whether it's rings, decorative rings, or the grommets, the movement when you open and close them will most likely scrape off the finish if it's not protected. So silicone spray is the trick. So the other thing is you want to mount the drapery rod well above the window frame. So minimum of 4 inches, because the rod itself is going to be about 1.75 inches diameter or larger. And the grommets are bigger than that diameter, so you've got to be able to clear those openings and gaps. So mount it about 4 inches above the window. That way the drapery fabric will come down over the window and cover up all of the, frame of the window very nicely. All right, and one more thing about the drapery hardware. So installing drapery panels, you have a rod and you will have at least a pair of brackets to put up. If your window is wider than 4 feet, wider than 48 inches, you will also need a center support bracket, which is installed at the center of the rod. So grommets then the brackets can get in the way of the grommets. So the placement of those brackets is important. And so you don't want to put the brackets too far in, because then the drapery panels are going to stop before the end of the window. So make sure your brackets are installed outside of the window frame, and so that, and just kind of like test it out. Put the grommet panels onto the rod, and if you have a helper, have them, hold a bracket up, and you can put the rod onto the bracket by the window and just see if everything is going to work okay, if the panels are going to cover the entirety of the window frame. And and if there's a center support bracket, if your window is wide, That's the other thing. When you close those drapery panels, they will not close all the way because the center bracket will be in the way. So just know that. It's not a terrible thing, but you just have to be aware of the things that can get away with these grommets. So, you see, that's why, that'll happen with regular rings too. The center support bracket, the rings will kind of get in the way of those. But the grommets are like part of the drapery panel. So rings can be moved around onto the drapery panel top and be a little bit more flexible. Okay. And the other thing is, buy the panels long. So have in mind that, even though, let's say, the top of the window to the floor might be 84 inches, or let's say it's 82 inches and you think, oh, I can get by with the 84-inch long panel. No, you can't. Buy the 96-inch long panels, because if you have, let's say your window is 84 inches above the floor, then you have to mount it at least 4 inches above that. Now you're at 88 inches, and you may even be more than that. So then you're thinking, well, then it's going to drag on the floor. But, it doesn't take that much to just hem the bottom of the panels. And if you hem the bottom of the panels custom to the length of where you install that drapery rod down to the floor, you're going to have super custom magazine looking drapery panels. It is worth it. It's just those little tiny things that really makes the difference between, ready-made sort of, doesn't look quite right because either they're too short, the drapery panels, or they're too long, or the grommets are like over the top of the window frame looking really awkward. So those are my tips for working with grommet drapery panels. So now here's another thing. I looked at the drapery panels at Costco, the grommet ones, and those panels are all solid neutral colored fabrics, which is fine. They only had the one length. They only had the 84-inch long, and I couldn't believe it because most of the time people are in that 88-inch range to 96, 92 for the length. And what you can do is just add a banding of fabric to the bottom of that drapery panel. So let's say you get the 84-inch panel and you install it, 4 to 6 inches above the window frame. Then you're short, maybe you're short 4 to 6 inches off the floor. Then just make a band, like sew on a band of fabric, just like you would sew on a band, a border on a quilt. So just sew a lower border on the bottom of the drapery panel and hem that, and it will look really pretty. It will look really beautiful. So definitely go with the longest drapery panel that you can. All right, so that will do it for today's podcast. I wish you happy sewing, happy quilting and crafting and making. Until next time, bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Make and Decorate podcast. The podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Stephanie Socha. Until next time, have a great day. Bye.